Welcome, College of Eastern Idaho students and anyone else listening, community members, staff, faculty. This is Updates with Mike and Lori, Lori and Mike.
Hello.
I'm Dean Mike Walker. This is the illustrious and lovely Vice President Lori Barber. And our special guest today is Dan Bruderer, the Senior Coordinator for Disability Resources. So welcome, Dan.
Thanks for joining us, Dan.
So excited to be here.
We're so excited to have questions for you later, so everybody can get to know you better. And Mike, we're so glad to have you back.
Yes, I took 1 week off last week.
And we all missed him, though Haley did a fabulous job. Haley Mack did a fabulous job in your stead.
She did, absolutely. And it was great to have Ken Kisner last week. I really enjoyed all the questions that he answered about, why students take robust education and the wonderful things that he talked about, like challenging their education and learning and helping them expand their minds. It was really a wonderful interview.
It went deep last week.
It did. It went really deep and I really enjoyed it.
All right. So
I don't know if I can pull deep, but we'll
challenge laid right there, Dan.
I'm no Ken Kisner.
All right. So shall I do my quote?
Let's do this.
All right. So I have our quote today, as usual. So our quote comes from Brennan Manning, who was a public speaker, best-selling author, Marine, and theologian. He died in 2013. I thought this quote might be good just with everything that's going on in the world. And so he said, "Grace is sufficient, even though we huff and puff with all our might to try and find something or someone that it cannot cover. Grace is enough." And again, I just thought that was such a good quote for today, for everything that's going on in our world. I realize I'm repeating myself, but I think we could all use a little bit more grace, and we could all extend a little bit more grace to everyone around us as we navigate everything that we're dealing with today. So there it is. There's my quote.
Those are some wonderful words of inspiration, Lori. Thank you. I think that these are difficult times for a lot of people. And I think the more grace that we can show, the more kindness that we can show, the more decency that we can show, and the more tolerance that we can show left and right, the better off we will all be. So thank you for that wonderful quote.
Sure. And I would just say too, kindness. When in doubt, let's just have
it never hurts just to be nice.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So now our updates.
Our wonderful updates. So first of all, COVID reminders. Any questions about our COVID policies, practices, anything, you can find all those COVID reminders on our website at http://cei.edu/COVID-19-information. And you can see it's also on the screen right now. CEI.edu/COVID-19-information. And also, you can also find updates if you do add a /updates to that. And that will tell you about our current cases of COVID that are out there. It'll give you a chart with some numbers and some of the latest information for people that might have questions about, what's happening with COVID on our campus and how it's affecting our campus community. Also, I want to stress again, every time, follow all normal COVID protocols. Cases are rising in Eastern Idaho. Yeah. So remember, stay at home if you're sick or displaying any symptoms. Keep a 6-foot distance from others whenever possible, like we are. Wear a face covering at all times in CEI buildings. The only time we're going to have ours off is when we're talking. We'll put them right back on. Clean your hands often for 30 seconds with soap and warm water to use hand sanitizer. Again, we'll get through this.
We will. So just make sure in those classrooms that you're practicing that 6-foot physical distancing. It's really important we've mentioned this before, it's really important that physical distancing makes the difference between a whole class having to quarantine or just a few people. So wear your masks, keep 6 feet distancing, all of that.
Amen.
All right. So Mike, I noticed I went through my updates really quick and I noticed you didn't give me any websites to read. You know why?
I didn't.
I messed up one time. I stumbled. And now, weren't we just talking about grace, Mike?
But isn't that the job of a TV producer, Lori?
It is. All right. He's letting me play to my strengths. So maybe I should say thank you. Maybe I should extend grace. All right. So I have the next update. It's about e-refunds. So e-refunds are coming soon. Our goal is to go live by the middle of October. This is awesome. This is a new thing for our campus. So we are super excited about it. You can sign up now through your student self-service. Why wait for your refund check to come in the mail? You can get it much faster by enrolling in e-refunds. Do I sound like a commercial or what? But this is really good for everybody involved.
Indeed.
So by signing up online, you can get your refunds deposited directly into your bank account. A, it's easy. B, you can go to the student self-service portal and click the Make a Payment link. Then C, in the Student Account Payment Center, click the Electronic Refunds option. And then you provide your bank account information. That's the information that you do regularly when you're doing any
routing number and account number.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then also coming soon, students will be able to sign up for a payment plan through student self-service and make a payment through self-service. So more information on that to come. We are automating more every single day.
I'm so thrilled
We're
at this.
excited.
I want to give a special shout out to our business office, our CEI business office,
Absolutely.
and to our IT team for the work that they did on this process. I know it was a really lengthy process. It took a lot of work, and I'm really proud of our team. This is going to be so great for you students because it's just so convenient. Okay, I have some marathon financial aid updates that I'm going to share with you. Okay.
Deep breath.
Deep breath.
There you go.
Okay, now you guys are in anticipation. And gals. CARES funds are available. Please complete the COVID-19 relief funding application online. Deadline to apply is October 9th. So CARES Act funds are available to every student. And guess what? There's more money available even if you've already received some funds. So fill out that application. Go to the financial aid website, which there it is, and you can get the CARES Act information. So check out that site on the screen. Thank you so much, Amanda. The next check release for financial aid refunds will be mailed after September 30th. Again, that's the old way of doing things. With if you sign up for direct deposit, you don't have to mess with the checks. So it's going to be exciting. First-time students, first-time loan borrowers, loans are held for 30 days. Funds were released after September 24th, and refund checks will be mailed after September 29th. Withdrawing from one class or a few classes can affect your satisfactory academic progress, which can affect your financial aid eligibility. Be sure to check with the financial aid office on how you will be affected if you decide you want to take a W or withdraw from a course. Withdrawing from all classes will cause a payback to your financial aid. Please contact the financial aid office to discuss your options and potential payback. Sometimes you really worry you're not going to get the right grade, and sometimes the best path is to stick in the class and muster up the courage to finish the grades, finish the classes, and be successful. So you don't want to withdraw at your first sense of defeat. Okay, the last day to withdraw from full-term classes is November 2nd with no grade penalty, and October 12th is Columbus Day. So work-study students will not work on that day because of the federal holiday status. So just a reminder.
Great. All right, we have some exciting news. Our annual trunk or treat will be held, but we're going to be doing it a little differently this year, as you might expect with COVID precautions. And also, before I read this, I guess I need to announce too that we will be doing this as long as everything remains as it is now. So if something were to change from one of the entities that we are following and that we take advice from and we follow guidelines from, if it changes, then this might change as well. If the current guidelines change, then we might have to change this as well. But everything being as it is now, here's what we'll be doing for our trunk or treat. All right, so it's going to be drive-through style on Thursday, this says August 29th.
Sorry, I made a mistake.
Thursday, October 29th, not August. We're already past August 29th. So, all right, let's start over. Thursday, October 29th from 5 to 8 p.m. with families staying inside their vehicles and driving through the CEI parking lots up to our business trunk. So everybody will have to stay in their car. Nobody will be getting out of their cars when they come on campus. The trunks will be lining both sides of the parking lot, and we will have 25 feet on each side of our business trunks. The trunks will be given masks and gloves to hand out the candy to kids, and the candy will be placed on trays as seen at most fast food drive-through places these days. We will also have our own radio station managed by a CEI student with DJ experience that will be periodically reminding everyone of the safety measures. We are very excited to host this event for the community, as so many are being canceled, and we're also excited to bring some joy during these difficult times. And our number one priority during this drive-through trunk or treat will be keeping everybody safe. And Mike and I will be updating you should anything change, because our mandates have changed from the entities who we follow.
Wonderful. Okay. So this next topic is really fun. It's important for students to know, and it's important for students to be aware. We've tried to make all of our student population aware by making sure that they know that they can get a copy of this student handbook that's printed in the Student Affairs office, but also is available on our website all the time, as well as the CEI catalog, again, available digitally on our website. I sent all students, staff, and faculty an email this morning with these links, but we also mention all of these things that I'm about to tell you in our, in some part of our process with the new student orientation, and in some part of our processes with students in general. And it's also on the syllabus template. But students kind of have been wondering how to make a complaint.
It's a good thing to know.
So some general advice about complaints, and then I'll direct you to they're on page 29 and 30 in the student handbook,
So Mike,
and on page 31 in the catalog.
and so before Mike gets started, I just want to say that we encourage, if you have concerns, questions, Mike's office is the place to go, and we encourage you to go there to talk with Mike, to lodge your complaint, to voice your concerns.
And whatever the complaint is, whatever the concern is, left, right, up, down, it doesn't matter. I will listen, I will hear you, and I will come up with work with you to come up with a solution. So you can always come to my office and ask questions about processes or procedures, or register any kind of complaint. If there's an issue that you have with an instructor, I'm happy to listen, but I will always refer you to the instructor first. Students should talk to their instructor in their office hours. If it is an issue about a bias, I'm happy to listen, especially if someone feels they aren't being heard, and I will help address any bias or any concern or perception of a bias. I will ask a student how he or she wants to proceed, and I'll give them options and parameters. If it is purely an instructional issue, I will refer the student to the instructor, department chair, and dean over that area. If the instructor is a department chair, I will refer the student to the instructor and dean directly. If the complaint is about a non-instructional issue, then I'll handle it how it needs to move forward with an employee or with human resources, just depending upon the issue or the severity. If it's about another student, I would generally look at the concern and discuss a plan of action with the complainant and perhaps with the respondent. No matter what, though, the student should always contact the instructor first if it's an instructional issue for any instructional complaint. Most issues can be resolved by having a one-on-one conversation during the instructor's office hours. And as I stated, the steps are outlined right here. I'm going to read just a couple of them. I'm not going to read all of the steps, but I'm going to read a few of the steps just so that students are aware. Again, they're in the student handbook and in the catalog, exact same language, page 29 and 30 in the handbook, page 31 in the catalog. Step 1, it is recommended that a student seek out the individual with whom the grievance has occurred to discuss the issue and reach a mutually acceptable solution. So that's the first step. Step 2, in the event the complainant cannot reach a suitable conclusion with the individual with whom he or she has a grievance, the complainant should submit a written appeal and form to a division manager, dean, or department chair, depending upon the circumstance. The written appeal must be presented within 10 working days of the grievance or complaint. In the event that the grievance involves a division manager or department chair, the appeal may be submitted to the appropriate dean. In the event that the grievance involves a dean, the appeal may be submitted to the vice president of academic and student affairs.
That's me.
And that is our wonderful Lori Barber. The manager, so either the division manager, the department chair, the dean, or the vice president conducts an investigation, then reviews the information and meets separately with the student and others as needed. The appropriate manager then renders a decision within 5 working days. If a committee is needed, the manager takes the necessary steps, and the committees are listed on that same page, the types of people that would serve on a committee. Please see the institution Title IX policy for procedures regarding a Title IX grievance. The Dean of Student Affairs, that's me, can answer any student-related Title IX questions, or frankly, any other questions. There are further steps if something is not satisfied at that point, and you can read about those in either the student handbook or student appeals procedure. Again, page 29 and 30 in the handbook, page 31 in the appeals, in the catalog. And my door is ever and always open. Any thoughts on that, Lori?
I think we've covered it. I think students have a lot of options at their fingertips, a lot of people who are willing to listen and help resolve whatever might be going on. So, but moving on, 14 minutes. That's
Less
pretty
updates.
fast.
Yeah,
Less updates.
not as many updates today. So again, thank you to Amanda for helping out. I do want to introduce our wonderful guest for this feature of our show. So I have known Dan for almost 2 years now. This is Dan Bruderer, our Senior Coordinator for Disability Resources for the Disability Resource Center. Dan has done so much to transform how we serve students with disabilities at this college, and he's updated our procedures and our policies. And he has set a tone and worked with faculty in amazing ways. And we're so glad that he's come into this role. So Dan, first, I want you to tell us about your background, how you came to work at CEI, and how you came to come into this role.
Okay.
So welcome.
Thank you. I am happy to be here today. The short story is I was born and raised just outside of Cleveland, Ohio. Came to Rexburg to go to school. Did a bachelor's degree there in social work. I did my master's in social work at Boise State. After I graduated there, I worked 5 years in a local school district doing children's mental health, 3 years in juvenile corrections.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And now just shy of 2 years this week, Thursday. Thursday is my 2 years of being here at CEI.
Wow.
So yeah, it's flown by, but like you said, a lot of change in that time. Taking a department that was serving just a few students when we got here. I mean, just the growth of CEI in the last 2 years. Fall of 17, I think we had 800 students, and this fall we're at shy of 1,600. Mm-hmm. Just tremendous growth that we've seen in the department.
So it's really hard to believe you've been here 2 years.
It's true.
I mean, it does seem like just yesterday, Dan, that you came with us. So I have the next question. So what are disability and accessibility resources? What does that mean? What kinds of concerns do you deal with on a daily basis to help students? Or why do students need your services?
Okay.
I can repeat any of that.
Yeah, sorry, I grouped the questions this time a little.
That's all right. Luckily, I've got them in front of me. So the first part, why are disability resources necessary?
Yes.
Individuals with disabilities are a protected class under federal law. There's the ADA, the Americans with Disability Act, as well as the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, Section 504. And these things provide certain rights for individuals with disabilities.
So important.
They are, particularly for institutions receiving federal financial aid like us.
Right.
And so these are things that we are mandated to follow because we receive financial aid, but also because we care about students with disabilities.
100%.
So they are protected rights that allow for equal access to all things CEI, whether that's just getting around our campus, whether it is attending classes or our activities. The idea is that accommodations are made to allow a similar experience to be had by an individual with a disability and a student without a disability, so that they are experiencing CEI similarly. We can't make it the exact same for any two people, but that any barriers that are in the way are either removed or that we've made an accommodation to help address that barrier for that particular student, depending on what their needs are. Accommodations are not meant to make school easier.
Sure.
They don't, accommodations can't make that 20-page paper a 4-page paper. Can't change grading criteria, things like that. But they are there to help ensure that equal access to all things CEI.
It's just so important and so fantastic what you've done with the department in 2 years.
Way to go, Dan. How can a student get a hold of you, and what should a student bring to an intake?
So my office is located within the Center for New Directions. Again, going back 2 years ago, when our numbers were down across campus, the Center for New Directions and accommodations or disability resources were housed within the same office. With the growth of the college, we were able to bring on my position. Thank you, by the way. With that, I'm still housed within the Center for New Directions. So I'm found in building number 5, room 591. So that is where to find me, or you can email disability.resources@cei.edu, and that'll come directly to me or to the administrative assistant for the department, or by telephone at 535-5462. So those are all of the ways to reach me. Honestly, email is usually easy,
Sure.
or dropping by. I'm a people person. We're under restrictions right now, but I love having students in my office. That's where I find personal satisfaction, is helping individuals.
Thank you so much, Dan. I appreciate that.
So did you say what students need to bring to the intake?
Oh, I didn't?
Yeah, that's, I know.
So thank you.
Didn't say that. So main thing is bring yourself, first of all. And we have recently, under our restrictions, I've been able to do intakes via Zoom. And that has really helped a lot of my students,
Yeah.
particularly those who are not able to get out.
Right.
I don't think we cover that. I don't even know if these questions cover that. Maybe I missed it in part of number 2, in the students that we serve.
Yeah.
Disabilities look differently for each individual, whether it's a physical disability, a mobility, a struggling to get around type of issue,
Right.
wheelchair bound, whether it's blind or low vision or deaf or hard of hearing. Those are some of the most common seen disabilities, but then
Sure.
there's plenty of unseen disabilities.
Right,
Depression,
sure.
anxiety, ADHD, other attention struggles, but also chronic illnesses. I've worked with students with Crohn's disease, Lyme disease, a number of different things. So one of the most important things to bring in with you is documentation of your disability, whatever it is you're experiencing. Accommodations can be approved once we have a doctor's note saying, here's what I'm experiencing.
Sure.
Here are some of the limitations, the barriers that I'm experiencing in my learning. So we request that that's brought in. A lot of times we'll have doctor's offices send it right over. Whatever's easiest for the student. We try to take a no wrong door approach to getting into the office.
And that can be any prescriber, right? Like,
For the most part.
Yeah.
Depending on the nature of the disability.
okay.
I've had students that have brought me, if they're fresh out of high school and they still have testing from their IEP, their individual education plan, their eligibility report, we can accept that. There's not a lot of limitations that we experience with that, as long as we have some justification for the accommodation.
So Dan, I have just a little bit of an off-script question. So what if a student feels like something's not quite right or something's not going well for them in the class and they don't necessarily have an accommodation yet from a doctor? Can they come see you first?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That happens pretty frequently.
Great.
If a student is just struggling, our faculty are aware of what resources I have to offer, as well as what the Center for New Directions has.
Sure.
And so we encourage our faculty or any student that might feel like they're struggling, come in and we'll find something for you. Whether it's a resource through CND, Center for New Directions, whether it's helping them with some study skills, whether it's helping them work out something with an instructor. If we need to do a mediation, something like that, we do that regularly. But if a student thinks they're experiencing a disability or they're unsure, yes, come in and we can talk about it. Again, where accommodations were housed within the Center for New Directions,
Right.
all of the staff that are there have done this job as well.
Okay.
So they're very experienced and they can say, hey, it seems like maybe there's something a little more. Why don't we get you in with Dan? And then from there, we can refer them out to a provider, or we have a lot of different options
Sure.
in getting that supporting documentation that they might need.
Okay. So you're just a really good first contact if a student feels like they're struggling and they feel like they maybe need more than just talking with their instructor.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. That is so wonderful for our students that you guys are there.
And let's put that phone number up again one more time. And then it's disability.resources@cei.edu if you want to get to Dan directly. And that phone number is 208-535-5462. Again, disabilities is in C&D room 591. Okay.
So I think I have the next question, and it's a really important one. So how can access to higher education be improved for students with disabilities?
So I thought of a number of things with this one. The first of which starts with our faculty, who are doing an absolutely great job. but it begins with universal design. It begins with having students with disabilities in mind. With so many of our classes moving online, there are things that can be done, sharing PowerPoints, sharing lecture notes, having some of those things available. Disabilities affect students differently, but for some, maybe it's a student who struggles with attention issues, or a student who struggles with gross motor issues like writing.
Sure.
Having access to those notes is really beneficial to the student. They don't have to stress over keeping up with the notes. They can focus more on listening to the lecture and getting what the instructor is saying. So that's a really simple way, just sharing what you already have. And as we've moved online, we've seen a lot of that. Our faculty are sharing those lecture notes or those PowerPoints with all students on Blackboard. Another way for our instructors who are using videos, having those captioned. If it's even just that 5-minute welcome video, or if it's the 12-minute or 20-minute video that they want to share in their class, if we can find captioned versions of those, or if an instructor is able to add captioning into that, into their welcome to class video that they might shoot for Blackboard, those are really beneficial. I don't know about you guys. I'm someone that I watch any movie I watch, I'm going to turn captions on when I can.
Right.
I don't necessarily have a hearing disability,
Right.
but it benefits me.
Yeah.
I'm able to catch more of what's going on.
Right.
And the same is true for a lot of students, but particularly my students who are deaf or hard of hearing. Things like captions can be really beneficial. So
Universal design really matters.
Yeah, a lot of it is at that institutional level,
Yeah.
the things that we're doing behind the scenes, preparing our instructors to
Sure.
teach individuals with disabilities. Another one sometimes is just understanding,
Sure.
helping our faculty understand when a student presents with a disability, how to interact with them. One of the things that the ADA protects is I don't share information with faculty or with folks on campus about an individual's disability, but I will talk about their accommodations and why it's necessary. And occasionally I will have a student that says, "Hey, can you list on that letter ... about my disability," so that the teacher knows. And sometimes that is appropriate to do. And that kind of just helps the instructor to have kind of all the information on that student. Sometimes it's an email conversation. And I always include the student on an email that goes to faculty so that the student knows there's nothing happening about them without them.
Right.
So that they're included on all communication. If a faculty member responds back to just me, I'll always throw that student back on the CC, and I'll let the instructor know, hey, I've included them again, just because we want to make sure they're involved. So those are some of the big things that we can do at an institution level for working more effectively with students with disabilities.
That's just fantastic. And as a former instructor, I have many times worked with a student, the disabilities coordinator, this was at another institution, and then myself to come up with what would be best for that student in my particular classroom. And so that group working together is really important too, I think. I mean, clearly you are the expert and you talk about what the accommodations that are needed, but then if the instructor can be looped into that at any point, it really helps.
Well, and absolutely, because not all accommodations look the same for each class.
Exactly.
A math class and an anatomy and physiology class might look differently for how that accommodation is implemented. And so sometimes it does take the instructor calling me or emailing and saying, Dan, okay, how are we going to work with this?
Right.
What does this look like for my class or for my lab, or things like that? And so accommodations, we do our best not to make it cookie cutter.
Sure.
We want it to be as individualized as possible, down to let's sit down and have a conversation with your instructor on how this will look.
Yeah, wonderful.
So we recently purchased some new software called AIM. We're in the process of starting that and getting that back to better assist our students. And so I'm excited about that. This is going off script. I've taught for about 13 years and I've had students with a variety of different accommodations. And how is this new software going to help you do your job more easily?
Thank you. I'm super excited that we were able to get that software. The way it's going to work, the way it's worked in the past is a student comes in, they fill out paperwork, we sit down and we do an interview, and I'm taking notes by hand. Then we write the accommodation letter. And in the past, that accommodation letter, I would give the student a copy for them and a copy for each of their instructors. And it was the student's responsibility to take that letter to their instructor to let them know these are the accommodations I'm receiving. But this software will allow us to do a lot of that online. We will be able to send accommodation letters to faculty and to the student there. Students will be able to renew their accommodations through the database. Faculty will be able to log on and see which of their students are receiving accommodations and what are those accommodations.
So good.
Rather than faculty looking around for
Right.
that particular letter and which section of my class is that student
Right.
It'll be
in.
so much easier.
It'll integrate with our colleague system and it'll pull the class rosters. It'll let them know just what accommodations they're receiving. It's going to make it a lot easier on the faculty side as well as on the student side, where right now students have had to come in every semester to renew their accommodations because, again, it's been here's your paper copies,
Right.
take them, excuse me, to your instructors. And so
Right.
each semester we had to do new ones. But students will now be able to do that on their own and send it. There may be specific accommodations that they, again, going back to our math class and our A&P class, accommodations that they don't necessarily need in A&P, but they need in math. They can send directly those specific accommodations to their math instructor compared to other ones, or not all of them to their A&P instructor. So the portal will be really great for our students, for our faculty. It should help out a ton.
It's amazing.
It is amazing. So what kinds of advice would you give to students regarding disability resources?
The main thing is be an advocate for yourself. I would tell any student that, but students with disabilities, you have to speak up to be heard. Come to my office, come to the Center for New Directions, come and see us, see what we can do. If you're not sure if you have a disability, if you just know you're struggling and you don't know what it is, come and see us. We can get you resources. We can put something in place that can help, whether that's informal or whether it's formal accommodations. The main thing is you just have to speak up.
So we can be an advocate for you, but not until you self-identify as an advocate for yourself, right? Like until we know about your concerns, until Dan knows about your concerns, there's not much that we can do. But once you come in, then that can initiate a process to be helpful so that we can be your advocate too.
And like Dan said at the beginning when he was answering this question, that's just good advice for everybody, to be your own advocate, to advocate for your own success, to figure out what you need for your success. Just be your own advocate, no matter all of our students.
Well, and I tell just about every one of my students who come through that communication is the biggest thing. Let someone know you're struggling, whether it's a peer, whether it's your instructor. For a lot of my students, their instructors are a great referral source. They already have a rapport with their instructor, so they're able to go to them and say, I'm struggling with this, what can I do?
Right.
And this actually goes into the next question as well. And that's when faculty can then refer over, hey, try these things out, see if this works. But we've had so many instructors who will walk a student over to our office to say, Johnny's struggling, he's not sure what it is, but I thought maybe he could benefit from some of the things that C&D or disability resources have to offer. And so if you're unsure, if you can't find your way over to Building 5, just talk to your instructor. Instructors refer our way. There's, again, no wrong door. We will take a student who comes in. However they make it to us, we want to serve them. So be an advocate for yourself, communicate, let someone know you're struggling, talk. Whether it's referrals directly from student affairs. We've got great gatekeepers over there.
We do.
Our administrative assistants in student affairs refer to me all the time and send students over. Last week, one of the administrative assistants called over and said, Dan, I've got a student over here. Would you mind walking over and meeting with them? And that's what we did. So whether it's bringing them to our office, calling us over, we want to do anything we can to help.
That's fabulous.
It is.
We're at the last question, Dan,
Yeah.
and it's been teed up and you've answered a little bit of it, but we'll just go ahead and get some more insight from you. How can teachers and instructors better support students with disabilities?
We talked about that one, being a referral source. I'll take it a little further. And I think this is the case already, but you mentioned this earlier, is be good people.
Yeah.
Be kind, be approachable, be somebody that your students are comfortable going to, so that they know that they have an advocate. Every employee on campus should be an advocate for students. That's why we're here.
Right.
That's one of the
100%.
the three main focuses that we have as an institution, is that we are student-centered. And I think that is the case. I haven't experienced
Sure.
anything differently. Be there for your students. Be patient. I'm a social worker. I'm an eternal optimist. I do my best to be kind to everyone. Find ways to recognize where your students are struggling. During quarantine, when everything had moved online, that was new for a lot of our faculty, new for a lot of our students. They didn't sign up to do classes online. They didn't
Right.
want classes online.
Right.
But we had a couple of different things that worked really well for our faculty as well as for our students. I don't know how many times you guys have touted our student.concern email address in this forum, but
There it is.
having faculty refer over to the student.concern, that email address is monitored by several of us, the Center for New Direction staff, disability resources staff, and our counseling center staff, as well as Dean Walker, monitor that. And so when an email comes in either from a student or from a faculty member, we are the ones who receive that, and are typically really, really good at responding within 24 hours tops, even on weekends.
It's true.
We're usually pretty good at getting back. But also another thing we did during quarantine was our faculty members sent us lists of students that were struggling. Hey, this student hasn't logged into Blackboard. Can you check in with them? And our staff, student affairs, and others went through and called 1,300 plus students.
That's right. It was amazing.
But it took hearing from our faculty members, hey, I don't know what's going on with this student. Can you reach out to them? We had that capacity. We were able to meet that need. And I personally, in the calls that I made, I think we were 75 or so individual students that we called a piece, had some really great conversations. And again, this was in the throes of quarantine, but how are you? What's going on? How can we help? What are your struggles? Whether it's connecting them with resources in the community or campus resources, that was so beneficial. So student.concern is really good. Faculty, let us know, reach out to us, students reach out to us. And just again, be kind, have other people's best interest at heart when you're working with them.
Extend grace.
And I want to say this to faculty, any faculty that might be watching, or furthermore, you can still send stuff to that student.concern at CEI.edu. So you can still send lists to it or information that you'd like us to do, and we will get to it as we can. We've hired some part-time academic advisors that can do virtual help, and they will be also monitoring some of those things to make sure that we are doing retention efforts to keep every student prepared and ready to graduate. So we're doing everything we can to try to help our students. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
Do you want to address that question?
Sure. That'd be great.
Okay, so the question says, I had a problem. Oh, there it is. I had a problem with a former security guard that worked on campus with my service dog. Security guard is no longer here, but if a student were to have a problem like this individual had, would I like them to come and talk with me? The short answer is, under the ADA, service animals are a protected class. Individuals with disabilities are protected. Having a service animal is a right. It's always really good if a student with a service animal comes and talks to me. That way we can give security a heads up. This isn't just, there's kind of two different classes of animals. There's an emotional support animal, ESA, or a service animal, which are limited to dogs or miniature horses, which we haven't seen on campus yet, but I'm crossing my fingers we do. If you haven't seen a miniature horse, just Google it. They're kind of fun. So the short answer is yes, come and talk to me, but it's not required under the ADA. But if I can help, we will. Typically, an individual who requires a service animal may benefit from other accommodations as well. So that's where I would refer students to my office, yes.
So no, to address, Maria's got a question here, also comfort animals. No, so comfort animals or emotional support animals, that is not the same thing as a service animal. Right. So yeah, that doesn't count.
Yeah, so service animals are under that protected class.
Right.
Emotional support animals are not.
Right.
But at other universities, if you are a student with a disability who benefits from an ESA, emotional support animals can be approved for dorms.
Like for residence living, but we don't,
For residence
we don't
halls,
have residence
which
halls.
we don't have, but when you are done with CEI and you move on to your
You might
four-year
find 'em.
university, find the disability resource office wherever you are, because ESAs can be approved. So great question, Maria. Thank you.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
So Dan, do you have any final thoughts for us? We've come to the end of our questions. So
We have.
What final thoughts do you have?
Come and see me. I would love to help. Again, I'm a social worker by nature, eternal optimist. I love helping people. That's where I find my personal satisfaction. And I will do my best to help any student, whether it's through our offices, through disability resources, or things in the community or other campus resources. I want to help people succeed. So let me help connect you to resources.
Thank you, Dan.
Hey, thanks, Dan. And again, thank you for tuning in to all of our students and any staff, faculty, or community members who have tuned into our broadcast. And we're welcome to answer any more questions that you may have. To reiterate, let's have Lori reiterate her quote from the day, since it's on the screen. I think that would be wonderful.
Yeah, so it was from Brennan Manning, who again was a New York Times bestselling author, a theologian, a public speaker, a Marine. And he said, "Grace is sufficient, even though we huff and puff with all our might to try and find something or someone that it cannot cover. Grace is enough." So hopefully this next week you will receive some grace, you'll extend some grace, and we will look forward to seeing you next week. We have a very special guest next week. It's the big guy. And I'm not talking about Santa Claus. I'm talking about President Rick Amon. We've been wanting to get him as a guest here, and he will be joining us next week. So be sure to tune in to, we get to ask the questions. Usually Rick asks the questions, but we get to ask the questions next week. So we're very excited.
There's going to be some doozies.
We're excited to welcome President Rick Amon next week. So have a wonderful week until then. We wish you the best, and take care and be safe.
Bye.